Whoo! Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. So, I have this very special presentation that I wanted to do for you guys today, and this is about self-sabotage and how this relates very much to not only health, fitness, and wellness, your working out, your nutritional habits, but also how this relates to your life. And I'm going to get into the weeds, really far in the weeds on this, how it happens, why it happens, and how to reprogram yourself so that it stops happening. Because at some level, we all are going to self-sabotage for one reason or another. I did a video, I believe 2 days ago, about it's really not about the fear of failure that really stops people. It's that fear of success, because once you have success, you taste a little bit of success, people start noticing the changes in your body, then becomes that responsibility. And oftentimes we shy away from that responsibility because we don't want to be put front row center, front row Joe, okay? So there becomes that self-sabotaging nature. And I've seen it so many times with clients that I've coached in the past, is once they start to taste that little bit of success, it's like, uh-oh, now the world is noticing, I'm noticing, and now I have this responsibility, and they start inching their work backwards, and they become very self-sabotaging in nature in their habits, and they get completely off track. So let's get down into the weeds about this, how this works, how to get unstuck so your life doesn't suck. So here we go. So I posted this the other day, yesterday, I believe, about thoughts. And the average human is going to have about 50,000 thoughts per day. So if you're an overthinker, if you're a ruminator, you're probably going to have more thoughts than this. But just think about that from just its sheer number, 50,000 thoughts per day. The brain really cannot hold and really pay attention to all of those thoughts. So some of those, actually probably the majority of them, are going to start becoming automatic and unconscious. So all that negative things that you know about your thoughts, the thoughts that you really say to yourself, those are only a fraction of really the negative thoughts that you truly are having. So on average, about 80% of all of those thoughts are going to be negative, and 95% of those are repetitive, even if they are unconscious. So the things that we pick apart about ourselves, the things that we don't like about ourselves, the things that we don't like about the world, we don't like about other people, those things are like about our job, whatever the process may be, those things end up being negative, and the vast majority of those become super repetitive. So the brain cannot process this many thoughts. So what ends up happening is these negative thoughts, like I said, become unconscious. So there truly is more negative thoughts that you're having that you're even aware of on a conscious level. It becomes unconscious. It becomes automatic. It's just something that you do. And if you pay enough attention to it, you will start to notice how many of your thoughts truly are negative. And they're negative not only towards yourself, but just the world in general. And by all means, 2020, there's a lot of negative things that we could pinpoint, we could look at. But at the end of the day, negativity is not getting you where you want to be. And self-sabotaging is definitely not getting you where you want to be, particularly as it relates to a fitness goal. So these are one of the things that I try to work with coaching clients, training clients about, is trying to reframe and rewire the way the brain works in order to get out of this self-sabotaging nature that is really just the counterintuitive and counterproductive from where we truly want to be as it relates to our goals. So there are two human drivers, period. These are the only two things that drive humans on a evolutionary level. It is, number one, to attain reward, whether that be to, the reason why you work out is so that you have this effect, whether it's, to feel good after the workout, and then long term is to lose weight, gain muscle, be healthier, whatever it may be, but you're doing it to attain a reward. And then number two is to avoid threats. Okay, so if we went back 5,000 years ago, or whatever that number is, our threats then versus our threats now are so diametrically different. We're not worried about whether the lion or the tiger eats us. Okay, we're not worried about whether we can get food or we can't get food in most cases. Okay, there obviously are exceptions to every rule, but those were our biggest threats. Whether it be the condition of the weather, because people, had huts and whatever the case may be. I mean, you understand that thousands of years ago, our threats then are way different than our threats now. So these are what drive us. They either drive us to do positive things or they drive us to do negative things. So, and it can be both for either one of these. And it can be physical or it can be emotional. I mean, I say this a lot, and the reason why people are so resistant to change is because they perceive it on their reptilian brain as it's a threat. I need to protect myself. When in all actuality, you're not protecting yourself from anything. Quite frankly, you're staying stuck, which is consciously you're wanting to get unstuck, but yet subconsciously you're staying stuck. So you're making that decision to stay that way. And if that's where you are, and you're meeting yourself where you are, then that's fine. But have realistic expectations about whatever the goal may be. And you have to remember that. But if you're in a solution mode, as I've talked about so many different times, then obviously you're not worried about avoiding these threats that are programmed into your mind. You're not worried about the change that you may have to incur. And we'll get down into this a little bit later, but this ends up become fight or flight. So our sympathetic nervous system comes into play. We either are fighting or we're running. Okay, it's either or. So this is where this comes into avoiding certain threats. Now, I want you to kind of think to yourself, when is the last time that I'll give a personal story about me personally. So I've taken many speaking engagements. I've spoke literally all over the country, and every time I do, I get super nervous prior to. I'm very comfortable in front of groups. Once I'm out there, I'm good. But there just seems to be that period of time between when I'm supposed to go on and when I actually get on stage that I am super stressed. I'm super fearful, and I get into this avoiding threats. So it's almost like part of me wants to fly, just wants to run, right? Because I'm trying to avoid threats. What's the worst thing that can happen? Well, I could bomb this presentation. People could laugh at me. They could laugh at me off stage, say that I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, and then my day is ruined, right? So this has happened to me numerous amounts of time because I still have this programmed in me to avoid these threats, but yet I expose myself to them constantly because if I feel like it is a threat and I feel like there's some resistance to me, that I need to go do that because that's going to, it's going to grow me as an individual and as a person. And I think a lot of times as it relates to our fitness level, we go with what we're comfortable with, whatever that may be. And we end up not truly getting the results we want because we stay in a comfort zone. And no results happen in a comfort zone. All right, so here's the reason why people self-sabotage. And it's this acronym, it's LIFE, L-I-F-E. Okay, and I'm going to go over each one individually and what it truly means and why it applies. So just remember this acronym anytime that you are thinking about self-sabotage. Now, all four of these may not apply to each individual. Maybe only one does, maybe two do. And they kind of go hand in hand. L and I kind of go together, F and E kind of go together. But you know, it isn't just an all or none thing. So L is low self-concept. So This is who we truly believe we are in this world. And this comes from learned behavior as a child. So the things that we thought about ourselves as a kid, the things that we were taught about ourselves as a kid, the things that happened to us as a kid, we start developing whether we're going to have a high self-concept, a middle self-concept, or a low self-concept. And it ends up being that we end up having this self-fulfilling prophecy about ourselves because we've, again, those 50,000 thoughts per day. If you think about the same thing 50,000 different times per day, it's kind of the same negative narrative that you're thinking about yourself. If you do that for 30 years, that's hard to get out of, right? So if we don't value ourselves, if we don't have a high self-concept of ourselves, thinking that we deserve something, it's difficult to try to attain something. So if you got 50 pounds to lose, super difficult to do that if you don't think highly of yourself, because you're not going to have the confidence necessary in order to try to attain it. And if you do see some type of success, you don't think you deserve it anyway. So you're going to end up sabotaging it in the end and going backwards. Now, this ends up being that self-fulfilling prophecy. You see this so many times with people, and I see this so many times over 17 years of doing this, that people will develop this narrative about themselves, and it is hard to break it. It's hard to break it. It's because they've tried so many things over the course of time. They failed, according to them, okay? They failed, and if they try to do something else, they're going to fail anyway. Or they're going to half-ass it, or they're not ready to do it, or whatever the case may be. And it ends up not happening because they don't value themselves. You also can have a high self-concept in one area, like work. Like, you know, if I come to a certain person and be like, hey, you know, I've got this job problem, boom, no doubt, no thought, nothing, boom, can solve it, right? But when it comes to the relationship life or their fitness life, do not have as high a self-concept. So therefore comes that sabotaging behavior. And this would get frustrating for people because it's like, I've got all my ducks in a row professionally. Why can I not get my personal to be in the same way? Well, again, this dates all the way back to when you were a kid. I remember my uncle made a comment about me when I was about 10 years old. And I was a husky kid, like all boys are. And he made a comment about me getting fat. And because I was so in tuned to professional athletes, professional wrestlers, the way their bodies looked, Arnold, the whole 9 yards, that comment just took me down. And it's been something that I've kept with me for my entire life. Now, through therapy and talk therapy and things, I kind of I figured that part out about myself. And I've had to work on that narrative that I've painted myself in, as that skinny, fat kid, right? So again, that self-fulfilling prophecy for a little bit held true with me as well. So this is the L. Hashtag L in the comment section if this is you. The I is internalized beliefs, okay? So these are the beliefs from childhood about ourselves, the same thing as the other one, okay? They go hand in hand together. These beliefs were instilled in us in our early years, like I said about the comment that my uncle made about me. No shot against him. He just was making a random comment, but it stuck with me. I mean, I have had so many conversations with so many clients over the years that it's been one comment that has caused a trajectory of different bad events and bad self-image because of just one comment. And you know, that's really powerful. So now the problem lies in the fact of those 50,000 thoughts that we have per day, most of them being negative, 95% of them being repetitive, okay? It's difficult as we grow older to take on new information to counteract that narrative that we've painted, okay? Those negative thoughts that we've painted. So we end up, instead of acquiring new information about ourselves to counteract it, we end up taking the new information that we learn as we grow and just solidifying what we've already thought about ourselves. So you end up fulfilling this self-fulfilling prophecy because you have this narrative you've painted about yourself, and any new information that you get just solidifies what you've already thought about yourself, whether it be true or not. So you have these internal beliefs about yourself, and it's difficult to come out of. So acquiring new beliefs is super important, but if those new beliefs only solidify what you've already been thinking about yourself, you've got no room for any positive thoughts about yourself to come in and change it. The only thing you can do is you have to program yourself to change it and believe in yourself and have a better self-confidence about yourself. We'll get into that in a second, but a lot of this comes from our family. We often take the ability to handle stresses from our family unit. How your parents handled stress is how you saw stress being handled, so then you have implemented that as well. It's interesting, but that's the way that it works. Okay, so think about how your parents or whoever raised you, how they handled stress and conflicts and change. Is that the same way that you do it? Because it's a learned behavior, and it's learned behavior in a crucial period of time where we're learning about ourselves and how to handle certain situations. Becomes ingrained in us. It's hard to get out of that mode. The F is the fear of the unknown. I think as a general rule, humans are resistant to change. We resist it at all costs. Now, in 2020, we've been flooded with nothing but change. It's been change every single day, whether it's this, that, or the other, fill in the blank, right? So think about this as, I guess because of things like this, like the example that I provided, the year of 2020, I roll my eyes because there's just so many things to go down that road. We're not going to go, but we look at it as negative. Everybody looks at this year as being negative. They painted that picture as just straight negativity. Well, if that's what you believe, then that's what it's going to be. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? We want to be in familiar situations. We want our old lives back, right? Well, we may not get that ever. Who knows? But we're fear that unknown. We want to be comfortable. So when you start down a fitness journey, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to lose 10 pounds or none. I don't know if I, start this nutritional platform, if this is going to help me or it isn't. So I'm just not going to because I fear the unknown. Is that really the right attitude to have? And does this cause us to self-sabotage ourselves because we're afraid of something that may never happen? Most of the things we worry about never happen. So why do we spend our time worrying about them? I ask that question to myself all the time. And last but not least is the excessive need for control. This is typically indicative of high achievers. People like me, okay? Not that, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, but, I would consider myself a high achiever. And in some cases, I like to have control. And when control is taken out of my hands, which is in a lot of cases in life, I tend to panic a little bit. I've gotten better as the years have gone by, but when success doesn't bleed over into one side of our lives like it does the other, end up giving up, right? I've seen so many CEOs, strong business people give up on their fitness goals because they cannot get all the ducks in a row from this area of their life into this one because they can't give up control. It's like, I have to be in control of everything. I've got to count every calorie. I've got to count every macro. Well, you don't have to. Okay? We have a system that allows you not to have to do that. And that's what we teach in our coaching programs. So you need to realize that being in control is not always possible, and it doesn't always have to happen that way. And if you have this excessive need for control, you're going to end up sabotaging yourself because you're never going to have full control ever in anything. The only thing you can control is the way you think. Okay. I know there's people argue with me. I don't give a shit. Okay. You can control what you think. You absolutely can. You can tell yourself that the 50,000 negative thoughts you think about every day are not the narrative that is truly about you. You can do that. So those are the only things you can control: your reaction and how you think. So as it relates to fitness, right? Because this is what we're here to talk about. We understand that the four things are how we self-sabotage each other. But when thought plus decision equals behavior, if I change the thought, okay, I just told you, you can control your thoughts. You can shake your head all you want. Science proves that you can. It may take a while. It's no different than a muscle. It's no different than a bicep curl. It's no different than a squat. It's no different than training to run for a certain amount of time. You can train yourself to think differently. When you change the thought, you change the behavior. That's how you change this equation. Negative thought equals to a negative decision will then equal a negative behavior. A positive thought will plus a positive decision will equal a positive behavior. And that positive behavior ends up equating to a better fitness result than what you're getting right now. Okay, so change the trigger, whether that be the environment, the people that you associate with, your own thoughts, yourself. Okay, if you know that you eat cookies late at night, don't buy cookies. It's that simple. Okay, or you can adopt a manner in which you can portion control to allow yourself to have some of your favorite foods and still get the results that you want. Hashtag me if that's what you want, right? So you can rewire your brain. And I think one of the easiest ways for you to do that is to make notes. Make notes, become self-aware. Understand that your thoughts sometimes drift to the negative and be okay with that. Figure out which one of those four you are, or two, or whatever. Okay, make notes about yourself, track your thoughts, realize when you're becoming negative, associate that negativity with a trigger, and if there is a trigger, change the trigger. Whether that's the environment, the people you hang out with, certain settings, situations, etc. Okay, if every time you talk to your mother, you have to get off the phone and eat 4 donuts, there's a problem there. Okay? There's a problem there. You have to fix that problem in order for this process to be changed. Fear of failure versus fear of success. I've already said it. I'll say it again. I don't really think people's fear of failure is as strong as their fear of success. Yes, people are afraid to fail. I do think that is a thing. But I think that they're more afraid of succeeding than they are of failure, because innately, subconsciously, our DNA tells us that we literally are we have the possibility of anything. We can do anything. The fact that we were born, we live on this earth, is a miracle enough to show us that anything is possible. So when anything is possible, that means if I have success, I now have responsibility. I don't know if I want to have that responsibility or not. We all experience this to some level. Understand that, myself included. I raised my hand. I think this also goes back to curbing the self-sabotage as having a concrete why. Why do you want what you want? Why is this important to you? You say 10 pounds, you want to lose 10 pounds, but why that? Tell me the last time you were 10 pounds down, how did you feel versus how now? And be able to kind of connect the dots. Why is it important? If it's just out there because your doctor told you to lose 50 pounds, it's a struggle. You got to want to. You got to have a concrete why. And then asking yourself, does this behavior add to my goal, take away, and why am I doing what I'm doing? Ask yourself questions constantly. Anybody that's ever been on a phone with me with a strategy call knows that I ask a ton of questions because I want to figure out who you are, what you want, and why you want it. If I don't know why you want something, I can't help you. Because eventually there's going to be a day and a time where you're going to want to throw the towel in. But if you have a strong, concrete why, because you're doing this because you want your family to be healthier, you want to live for your grandkids, you want to be able to function at 85 years old, you want to look good in a bathing suit because you want to attract a potential mate, whatever the case may be, whatever your why is, you got to know what it is and have a concrete why, because it will lessen the amount that you self-sabotage. Self-sabotaging, for the most part, occurs because of the first two, the L and the I, the internalized beliefs that we believe about ourselves that were adopted when we were children, and then number two is our concept of who we are based on those beliefs. If we can start believing in ourselves and we can start having a better narrative that we've painted about ourselves, we will operate at a higher level and we will get more things done and we will be more successful. That I promise you. How do you get there? You rewire your brain. First, you become self-aware of what you do. Understand that you're self-sabotaging. Then figure out why you're doing it. Is it L, I, F, or E, or a combination of those? Okay. From there, we need to figure out, what is it that you want and why do you want it? And what is it going to take for you to get there? And that's really all that relates to self-sabotaging. So I'd like to just summarize this by saying we all do this. We all have negative thoughts about ourselves, myself included. We all do it to a certain degree, some more than others. But based on what I just presented to you today is the true reasons of why you do it. Becoming self-aware is half the battle. When you become self-aware, you can actually become in solution mode to try to find a solution to the problem. That's what it's all about. So, hashtag value if you found value in this. I know this is a long video. Hopefully you found it informative. Hashtag value in the comment section. Any questions or comments, please drop them in the comment section. I'd really appreciate some feedback on this video. It took a lot of time really developing this material so that I could present it in a articulate way for you guys. So hope everybody has a happy and a healthy day. Buff Gandhi, and